Hey everybody, welcome back. This is NYOA round number 6, Black Sky. I'm running the quad junior A class. As you can see, again, same issue from the last race. The shutter was locked in on that wrong position. I'm not sure why it keeps happening. I thought I fixed it before the race, but I'm going to go ahead and verify before the next race that it's actually working properly. But let's go ahead and get this one started. Green flag waves, get a decent jump off the line, but it looks like Dalton Danglovich is going to get the early lead, followed closely by Pat Lane, and then I'm going to be right there with them in third place. As soon as we get into the woods, it's pretty clear that Dalton is not messing around. He's already starting to open that gap up a little bit, and we definitely are going to have to pick the pace up if we want to stick with him for the remainder of the first lap. Before the race started, I did get a chance to walk a decent bit of the start here, so I know there's a few lines that I'm going to try and see if I can make work to get a pass early on Pat, but that one was not the best line. It kind of sent me straight into that corner, and I blew through that berm because it was so soft. But I'm going to go ahead and keep trying a few of these lines and see if I can make a pass stick, but everybody's moving at such a quick pace that making any kind of a move this early on is going to be extremely difficult. Here's another one of these split lines. I do think this higher line was the faster one, but I just don't think I was close enough to make anything happen there. I feel like we're running at a pretty decent pace, but we're only 2 minutes into this, and Dalton has already pretty much checked out, right? He's totally out of sight, so we really have to pick this pace up if we want to reel him back in before the end of the race. This early in the race, I'm really happy to just tuck in behind Pat, kind of run his pace, maybe look at some alternate lines. As long as he doesn't get out of my sight, I'm totally happy with staying right in this position. I don't want to get out ahead of him and start making mistakes or pushing too hard. So for the beginning, I'm really just happy to stay right here in third place. In this next section, Pat's going to have a little bit of bad luck. He's coming through these trees, and it looks like his left rear tire grabs that one on the left. It causes him to stall it, and I'm able to get around him to pass. So now I'm up into the second place position, and I'm just going to try to keep a steady pace going and try to conserve some energy on this first lap. I don't want to fall back any positions, obviously, but Dalton is pretty much checked out, so I'm going to run my own pace and see what happens from there. Coming out of this corner, I'm going to look over my shoulder, and I see Johnny Minahan is right behind me. Right now, I'm trying to push to open a gap up between us. That way I can get out of his sight. It seems like if there's a rider behind you that's able to see you, they can follow your lines and see, where the bumps are and kind of prepare themselves a little bit better. It's actually easier, I think, to follow somebody than it is to lead. I can usually save a good bit of energy running behind somebody. So I'm trying to open that gap up to the point where he's not able to see me anymore. That way I can start to stretch that out. I think if I can get out of his sight, he may slow down, but if he's right there and can still see me, it's going to be much easier for him to run my pace. This track was definitely an arm burner. Some sections like this were just U-turn after U-turn, and that can really cause some arm pump to really creep up. Normally I don't have an issue with arm pump out there, but for some reason this track, I think it was just all of this constant turning back and forth. It was just causing me to kind of overwork my arms a little bit and really start to have that arm pump creep up. So I'm trying to focus on loosening up a little bit, just even if I have to slow the pace down slightly, just to give my arms a little bit of a break coming through this stuff. That way I know that I'm not going to have an issue where I have to drastically slow down. One thing that's nice about all of these U-turns is that I can kind of get a glimpse of what's going on behind me, and I do think I see that Dylan Willis may have moved up into that third place position, and he is putting on a charge and gaining ground on me quick, so I know that there's really no time to slack off here. I have to really pick up the pace if I want to open that gap up, but that is easier said than done. Like I said before, this track was just turn after turn after turn, and when they're all linked up like that without really having a good break in between, it can be tiring. So I'm trying to push because I know I have the rest of the class right behind me, but I'm also trying to conserve some energy. And this track, I think, ended up shaping up to be one of the roughest tracks we've run this year too. We had a little bit of rain on Friday, which really made for some perfect dirt out in most of the woods, and there were some mud sections as well. But it kind of let that ground get really chewed up, especially from the bikes running in the morning. They usually dig one pretty deep rut through most of the corners, and that can make it pretty difficult to navigate through when you're running on a quad. I'm going to check over my shoulder again after putting in a good charge, and I see that Dylan Willis is still there, like 10 feet behind me. So, I know that I'm trying to push this lap, but I'm still not gaining any ground. So I'm thinking as long as I can hold him off for this first lap, I will settle into a groove during this second lap and maybe be able to open up that gap a little bit more. We were lucky this weekend and we ended up having pretty much perfect weather. Sunday, when you were in the shade, it was actually nice and cool. It wasn't too hot. It was pretty hot if you stood out in the direct sunlight, but most of the track was in the woods like this in the shade, so it ended up being pretty much perfect. And we had a lot of rain on Friday, but that cut down on any dust we would have saw, and it really made for some perfect dirt out in the woods. We will see a few small mud sections, but nothing too terrible. Another thing this track had that was pretty cool were all of these log jumps out in the woods. You can see there's one there to the left that I kind of skipped over, but there's another one right up here ahead that I'll actually hit. It was pretty cool having the option to kind of cut through some of these corners and just pop over a log. It's definitely tiring, and there was a ton out there. So I don't know if anybody actually went out there and hit every single one of them, but they were a lot of fun, and you could save a few seconds here and there by hitting them, and it definitely gave it that old school hair scramble kind of feel. Right here, I'm going to take a look over my shoulder, and I see another rider coming up behind me. That's NYOA Vragovich from the College A class. I'm going to pull over here quick, let him by. I know I have to get back on the track really quick because the rest of my class is not far behind him. I'm going to try to latch onto him and run his pace and see if we can open up that gap between myself and the rest of the class, because at this point they're still all really close behind me, so one small mistake by me and they're going to be right past me. You can see NYOA's a pretty quick rider. He has a couple wins this year in the College A class, and I think he has a few top amateurs, so I'm just going to try to run with him for as long as I can. You can see he blows through that muddy berm there, has to get turned around. So I'm not going to sit there and wait. I'm going to go back around him. I know it's only a matter of time before he catches back up to me, but I'm going to just keep going and try to push as hard as I can in the meantime. Only a few seconds later, and he's caught right back up to me, so I'm going to pull over, let him by. My class is just right there with me, and obviously the last thing I want to do is lose a position trying to let a rider from another class go by. So, we made it work. It was a pretty quick little move off the track there, and again, I'm just going to try to latch on to NYOA's pace and see how long I can run with him. Coming through this corner, I'm going to look over my shoulder again. I see Blake Vale behind me. He's a good buddy of mine. We ride together a bit. He's riding in the College A class, and we're pretty close in speed. He's a little bit quicker than me most of the time, So I'm going to try to just latch onto him and see if he can pull me along and open that gap up between myself and the rest of the class, or maybe even pull me back up and catch Dalton, who has extended that lead from the very beginning. As we come down this hill, this corner is going to be about the 8-mile marker, and this is the beginning of the more technical side of the track, I would say. Lots of mud. It was very slick down in here, and the track really started to get a little bit tighter. Big roots were coming out because that dirt was just so soft. So I was just trying to focus on keeping a nice steady speed, not making any mistakes, because if you get stuck in this kind of stuff, that can be the stuff that really sets you back a few minutes, right? If you have to get off the quad, pull yourself back and get unstuck from this mud, you can lose a lot of time. So just taking your time and making it through this stuff clean the first time can really help your race out. Some of these sections of the track were just absolutely nasty on the first lap. You come through, I mean, if this is what it looks like in the very beginning, it's only going to get worse as the race goes on. This stuff is just so slick and so soft. You really just want to keep moving, right? As long as you're moving, you're all right. But once you stop, then you're probably going to sink and you're really not going to go anywhere. So just trying to keep that momentum going through this soft stuff can really help. Remember, the goal is to just not get stuck in this stuff. It's so deep. Just picking a good line is important here. When you're going uphill, if you end up in that deep stuff, it's just going to pull all of your speed away. The smoother line that you can find, and one that might not be as deep, is always going to be the best choice. Here we have another split line. The right line was actually better, but I didn't see it until it was too late, so I end up going this left line, but I don't think I really lost that much time. I'm going to take this line to the right, let a few other college A riders go by. The hard part was looking over my shoulder to see if the rider was in my class or not. I didn't want to let anybody go by that was in my class, but with all the mud on there, you couldn't really tell who was who out there, but I kind of had a general idea of who was in my class and who wasn't, so I was trying to just let those guys go by. But after we go down this hill, we're in another nasty section, big holes forming, roots coming out, and that little bit of mud that just makes it that much more difficult. One thing you had to keep in mind was because the dirt was so soft, you couldn't really trust those berms. Right there, I almost went right into that tree because I'm trying to pivot off of that berm, and it's really just giving away because the dirt was just so soft. So, as you go, it's slick, and you have to make sure that those berms are really packed in before you really plow into them trying to turn, because they can just slide away and send you right into a tree or whatever you're trying to turn around. This next part of the track was probably my favorite section. Lots of rock gardens and things to go through. I do most of my riding down in Pennsylvania. Our track that we run on is extremely rocky, so I'm pretty comfortable riding in conditions like this. So whenever we have sections where it's real rocky like that, I know I can make up a little bit of time. And I really just thought this part of the track had a good flow to it. Continuing with some more rock here, we actually ended up going up this creek bed. This part of the track was a ton of fun as well. You can really move through this stuff. There was a little bit of water in there, but surprisingly it wasn't very deep at all. Not really enough to splash up and get on your hands or anything. So you could pretty much move as quick as you wanted through this stuff. And it was actually just a ton of fun trying to rip up that creek bed. Starting to get really close to the end of the first lap here. I'm going to pull over up ahead and let Ben Jacobs from the College A class go by. And if you look off to the left here, you'll actually see Dalton Danglovich. Looks like he might have tried to go out wide through that mud and got hung up on those logs. Ben Jacobs is going to get a little wild going through this corner, almost dump it over. He's able to get his foot out just in time to save it. But I let him by, and I'm able to actually pass Dalton for the lead in my class. I didn't realize I had the lead at this point, so I still think I'm in second place. But like I said, I'm only a minute or two away from the finish line, and I'll see as I go through the scoring tent that I'm actually out in the lead. The only thing we have left from this lap is this short wood section and then a few field section. So after the first lap, I came through in first. Dylan Willis was in second, and he was only 4 seconds behind me. So as much as I was pushing, I really couldn't open that gap up on the first lap. In third place was Dalton Denglovich. He was able to get unstuck. In fourth place, we had Pat Lane. Fifth place was Cody Marvin. Sixth place was Johnny Minahan. And then in seventh place, we had Cole Burlew. After crossing the finish line and realizing that I was in the lead, I realized that I had a decent pace going. I just had to keep that pace up for the entire race and just focus on not making mistakes. This track was a lot more technical than some of the other ones with that mud and some of those other sections. So if I could just get through without getting stuck, if I didn't have to get off the quad at all and get unstuck, I figured it would be a pretty good day. So just focused on trying to stay consistent, minimize mistakes, and just keep riding a nice steady pace until the end of the race. I want to give a quick shout out to Dan Ketterer from the Senior A class. I've been struggling with my shocks a little bit this year. I'm running a whole new suspension setup than what I've run in the past, and he came over before the race and actually helped me adjust my clickers a little bit to get them dialed in a little bit better, and they actually felt a lot better this race. So I think we're getting there. We're making some progress. They may still need a little bit of fine tuning, but overall the suspension performed a lot better at this round than what it had in the past. Here's that same section from the first lap that was just twisty and turny. And you can see after, a few hundred quads go out there, it really gets slick. Once those small roots come out, there's really no traction there, especially when they're wet. So you have to watch in these tight turns that you don't slide too far and go off the track. If you look down on the dash of the four-wheeler, you'll see a red light, and that means that the quad is starting to overheat. What happened was on the first lap through those muddy sections, all of that mud just got caked into the radiator. Normally, if I know there's going to be mud out there, I'll tape up the front of the four-wheeler with duct tape to try to keep that mud from getting caked in the radiator and allow that air to flow through and keep it cool. I never thought of it for this race, even though it rained on Friday. I should have known there was going to be muddy sections of the track and done that mud prep, but hindsight is 20/20, so maybe next time I'll figure it out and put that tape on there. But at this point, I just have to try to take it a little bit easier on the quad and not beat on it so hard. That way I can limp it through to the finish and make sure we don't do any major damage. One thing I've noticed with these New York tracks is that it seems like the second lap is always the best lap to put a push on. The first lap can be a little challenging because you have deep dirt bike ruts everywhere, and it seems like some of the lines aren't broken in very well. But by the second lap, those lines are really broken in. You can see where you're going. Things actually kind of smooth out as those dirt bike ruts get filled in or blown out. And then the third lap is usually the most challenging because you're already pretty tired, and it starts to get pretty deep out there. There's deeper whoops, and the track just starts to get rough, right? The roots and rocks start to come out. But that second lap is kind of the perfect middle ground there, where it's a little bit smoother than the last lap, but the lines are really broken compared to what you have on the first lap. As I'm making my way through this second lap, I'm starting to catch back up to another rider. That's Blake Vale from the College A class. Make a mistake here, and I stall it coming through these trees. And I'm just hoping that it'll restart because Sometimes these things, when they get hot like that, they don't like to start up, but it starts up pretty quick without too much of an issue, and I'm going to put that push on and try to catch right back up to Blake. It took me a couple minutes, but I was able to close that gap back up on Blake. So now we're riding together, coming through this technical section. He goes off to the right. I'm going to take this line to the left. It's a little tighter, but it seems like it's not as extreme as going to the right. I'm going to be running right there with Blake, and then he actually pulls off to the side, lets me go by. And as soon as I get by him and he realizes that it was me, I think he's going to really try to pick that pace up and just latch on to me, and we'll try and run the rest of this lap together. We're back in the pretty technical side of the track. I would say this was the hardest section coming through. It's a little bit tighter, and then up here we have some really deep tree roots that you had to go over, and they kind of threw you all over back into some deep ruts in that soft mud. You really had to be careful coming through this stuff, or it would throw you off the side of the track into a tree, or you just get hung up on the roots or in the ruts. And you had to be careful where you were going and picking those lines to make sure you didn't have any issues, right? There's a rider kind of stuck off the side of the track there. But you really just had to pay attention to where you were going and what the lines looked like to make sure you didn't get stuck in this stuff. I heard a lot of people say they didn't like the track because it was so twisty and turny and rough and technical, but I don't know. I mean, I tend to like the faster, flowier tracks, but I didn't really mind this one. There was a lot of turning out there, which could definitely lead to a lot of arm pump, but I still thought the track was pretty fun overall. But yeah, let me know if you like the tighter, rougher, more technical tracks, or if you prefer the faster, flowy, high-speed tracks. This part of the track was kind of deceiving. It seemed pretty flat, but there were some big whoops in here, and it was kind of off camber. You'll see I come around this corner up here, and my left rear tire grabs this tree off to the left and just throws me right into the bars. Kind of takes a little bit of the wind out of my sails. I'm trying to just settle down a little bit. I know I'm trying to push because I'm in the lead, but I need to settle in. Can't really afford to make mistakes, so I'm going to try and pull off to the side here, let Blake go by. He just checks to make sure I'm all right after grabbing that tree, but I'm going to settle in behind him and try to run his pace for a little bit until I get that comfortable feeling back to where I can really start pushing again. That brings us to the end of the second lap. I'm going to come through the finish line in first. Dylan Willis is still in second, but I did manage to open that gap up to about 2 minutes. Pat Lane is in third. He's only 23 seconds back. In fourth place is Cole Burlew. He moved all the way up from seventh, so he was really putting on a charge that second lap. In fifth place is Cody Marvin, and in sixth place is Johnny Minahan. Dalton never finished the second lap, so I'm not sure what happened to him. Maybe it was something that got broken when he went off the side of the track there where we saw him earlier in the video. Again, if you look down at the dash, you can see that my temp light is on again. I hear someone coming up behind me, so I pull over. It's Frank Howell from the Vet A class. He's moving pretty good, so again, just try to tuck in behind him and see if I can follow his pace. These rocks coming up here were pretty tricky. If you didn't carry your speed very well out of this corner, it was real easy to just spin a lot as you went up this hill. So carrying speed up that was really important because once you got on those rocks, there was very little traction, so you couldn't really build speed on them, but you just had to kind of float over them from the speed that you had earlier. Just wanted to take another second and show off our pit stop from this race. We did have a couple little issues. My kill cord got stuck under my gas cap when I tried to take off. But I want to give a shout out to Dave Taylor. He made us this nice water bottle holder that goes on our quick fill can. That thing is sweet. It just holds the water bottle right there. So I pull the cap off, I can take a drink and then take back off. This last lap, there really wasn't too much going on. I was just trying to pace myself for this last lap. I didn't really know how much of a lead I had built up over the rest of the class. So I'm trying to save some energy just in case somebody catches up to me. Then I have some energy left to put on a sprint and keep them from passing me. But it's kind of difficult to balance, pacing yourself with pushing hard enough, right? Because I want to obviously keep going and keep pushing so they don't catch me, but I'm worried that if I push too hard, if they do catch me, I won't have any energy left to put on any kind of a sprint and get away from them. We're about an hour and a half in, and I was able to catch back up to Blake again. I'm going to try to run with him, but you'll see here, he gets around this lapper, and then I kind of get stuck behind them. So he's able to pull that gap open a little bit more. I have to take this line off to the left, which isn't quite as smooth, but at least I'm able to get past that lapper and try to link back up with him and run the rest of this lap. We had a pretty good battle going on out there, and it just felt good to have somebody to ride with and kind of pace off of. Riding by yourself can be really difficult to try and keep that intensity up the whole last lap. So I'm out here trying to look for lines, seeing if I can make a pass on him. Not that it's really going to change my position because he's not in my class, but just trying to have a little bit of fun and racing against one of my buddies out there. Back into this really muddy technical section. Again, I'm just taking my time, trying to pick good lines. Blake goes off to the right. I'm going to take this left line, which is a little bit drier. It looks like he gets hung up on those roots, and I think it actually pushes him into that tree. So I'm able to make the pass and keep going. It's a shame for him to get stuck this close to the finish, but yeah, it was great running with him, and he was able to get it unstuck and get back out there in not too much time. Coming through this creek bed one last time, I'm going to come around one of these corners, and there's actually going to be a rider stuck off to the right. He's kind of standing right in the main line, trying to get him to hop back on the four-wheeler so I can just squeeze past him there. And luckily he was able to get out of the way just in time so I didn't have to stop or slow down. And this is really the last little bit here of the lap. I ended up finishing in first again. Cole Burlew managed to work his way all the way from 7th up into 2nd place. He was only 3 minutes and 46 seconds back, so not bad for him because he started way in the back of the pack. In 3rd place, it was Cody Marvin. In 4th place, we had Dylan Willis. 5th place was Johnny Minahan. And Pat Lane came in 6th place. He was having issues again this round. I think the quad was pretty much breaking up the whole time. Anytime he would give it throttle, it was trying to stall out. So hopefully he can get that fixed. But, again, it feels great to get another win at this one. I'm excited to go to the next round and see what that brings. This is what the points look like after the 6th round. Pat Lane and myself are tied for 1st. Dylan Willis is in 3rd. Cole Burlew is in 4th. Johnny Minahan in 5th. And Cody Marvin in 6th. We only have 4 races to go in the year, so we have a good battle going for the championship. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you at the next race.